Leadership isn't just about making decisions. It's about learning from those who have walked the path before you. Welcome to the TEMSEA Leadership Coaching Calls, where host Phil Sanderson, a national speaker, senior healthcare leader, and certified leadership coach, sits down with experienced EMS professionals to uncover their biggest lessons, toughest challenges, and best advice. Join us live, ask your questions, and take your leadership to new heights.
All right, everybody, good morning. It is the first Friday of the month. Man, these things come around so fast. Thank y'all for joining. We've got a really great talk today. Dennis Rowe, who many of you already know. We're going to get his introduction here in just a moment. Thank y'all for coming. Remember, we do this call every single month, and including on our podcast, because the most important person you'll ever lead is yourself. As we talk about all the time, in order to lead others, in order to get others to follow you, we've got to do a good job or the best we possibly can at leading ourselves. Please go out right now, take your phones, your iPads, or whatever you like to listen to, and subscribe to our podcast by Eric Kloss. He hosts that every single month. He's got some great content on there. You can find that on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Also, go to our YouTube channel, Tennessee EMS Education Association. Just Google that through YouTube and subscribe to these mentoring coaching calls. All of our previous calls are listed there. You can listen to them as well as our podcast. So take a moment, go out, subscribe to that, give us a like, listen to those. Some really good information. The last month we had an entire hour of all of our previous speakers. It is now posted. So many great nuggets learned and takeaways. So you don't want to miss that if you hadn't already listened to it. Also, special announcement here, the upcoming TEMSEA conference, the Tennessee EMS Education Association Conference, which is the sponsored organization behind this call as well as our podcast. That conference is coming up July the 30th through August the 1st. It will be in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. You can go on a leadership track. You can take an education track. You can take a provider track. There is something for everybody. It is high quality, and definitely you want to look that up on the website. You can Google Tennessee EMS Education Association, pull up their website, find the full agenda there. And if you are a golfer or if you're not a golfer, we still invite you on July the 29th. It's the kickoff to the conference. We have a golf outing. We would love for you, your organization, to sponsor a team. If you need more information about that, feel free to reach out to myself or one of the other board members for TEMSEA. Now, let's get started in this fantastic day. Today we have a well-known guest. Gosh, so much knowledge. I always enjoyed talking to our guests because I learned so much from them, things I had no idea about. And we're actually going to talk to Dennis yesterday. We're going to schedule another call to do something offline where we can record it, because Dennis has so much additional information to offer. But we're going to talk about today moving out of your comfort zone and building key relationships. And Dennis is going to walk us through his journey where he was moving out of his comfort zone, built some key relationships that landed him his position today. Dennis Rowe is a paramedic. He's currently the Director of Government and EMS Industry Relations for Priority Ambulance Corporation. He's also the Director of Priority Ambulance Leadership Foundation's Leaders of Tomorrow program. Today's topic is Beyond Comfort, Building Key Relationships That Matter. Dennis, that's all I'm going to say. Let's listen to you, brother. You've got more to add to your credentials and accolades, so I'm going to let you do that, and let's get right into it.
I've lived a charmed life. There's no doubt about it. I've been blessed from early on to be in the first health occupations program in Loudon High School. Was in my junior year, was allowed to go to work full time as I was turning 17, and was scrubbed in for surgery to hold a leg while they pinned a hip. and went from there to in the hospital. We did inhalation therapy before there was a respiratory therapy. So we learned how to do breathing treatments and et cetera. And we did a little bit of physical therapy because none of those things existed in the workforce at that time, are very minimally, and particularly when you're in a 50-bed hospital in a rural area in Loudoun County, Tennessee. Those opportunities abounded, and the doctors, many of them were Korean War era physicians. So you were allowed to, under the tutelage of the physician. So I was mentored and brought up by the House of Medicine. And because of that, I was in college, and I got a note about an EMT course, which is an 81-hour course at State Tech. Went to that, graduated through that, and then an inhalation therapist, because I wasn't on the ambulance at the time. Went to bag valve mask a patient by myself because there was nobody else to send at the time in 76. In the high back Oldsmobile ambulance all the way to downtown Fort Sanders because Park West didn't exist. It was a cow pasture at the time. So it was quite a ride going up Highway 11. Because of that exposure, I got very interested and went to the, of course, paramedic program, which was the first regionally trained program. Back when we had paramedic numbers, mine was 296 at the time. So it's by doing those things, it laid a foundation of getting do-overs, being the first in. And then on top of that, wound up going to worked at Fluor Daniels and heavy construction safety for a period of time, and went to Knox County for the World's Fair time period. And during that time, ran into a doctor who had done my internship on the ambulance called Dr. Lash, who basically, while we were sitting waiting for the game to be over, out when Alabama played UT, and we beat them for the first time, Bear Bryant's last year. They were riding shopping carts down, Cumberland into Cumberland Avenue, and Doc said, "Well, we're going to get a helicopter here in the next little bit. I went, you want to come to work?" And I said, "Sure, Doc." He said, "Well, we need people like you." And I said, "Okay, that's great." A year later, I was the director of the ambulance service back in Loudoun County, and I get this phone call at 4:30 in the morning. It says, "Well, you ready to come to work?" Who is this? And of course, it was a doc, and he said, "I want you to come to work part-time." So I wound up going there and was part of the startup program at the University of Tennessee Medical Center, with probably one of the most, I think, important EMS developments in the state was the helicopter system and interfacing, because it brought forth a lot of educational opportunities that was put forth by the universities and by people who wanted to contribute. Did a lot of educational outreach. During that time, I met a lot of physicians, and one of the ones that I met actually in 1978 at the first NAEMT board meeting that I was a board member at 22 years of age was Dr. McSwain, who also introduced me to Deke Farrington, who also introduced me to Roger White, who also introduced me to Bob Motley, who was the creator of the EMT. And all those folks laid a foundation of what they were trying to achieve from the beginning. So I got it straight from the horse's mouth. And it was very interesting because it motivated me to do it right. Wound up moving forward, became the trauma coordinator as well as the Department of Surgery. I was one of only two trauma coordinators that were not nurses, the PA and myself, in an academic teaching hospital. So I had a great opportunity there to do studies. I've been on 13 papers, book chapters. I've been asked to teach in 17 countries, part of the PHTLS program, which is in multiple languages and taught in multiple countries throughout the world. So all those things opened up opportunities to improve myself, but only because, in Dr. McSwain's word, when the door opens, you go through it. And when you go through it, you have to be careful, because if you're not, the door will hit you on the backside and knock you out of the way. And now you've missed that opportunity. So when it opens up, you got to go through it to develop. Most of these things, Phil, as we talked about, came about when I was a youngster, and my mother developed cancer when she was 28, breast cancer, and died at 33. Who was my steadfast supporter and believed in me. And I was 11 years old, and I wanted to be an architect up to that point. And then healthcare became a driving force for me. My son recently asked me, he said, "Dad, you've always known what you wanted to do." I said, "Well, son, once your grandmother died, yes, I did, but I've done many, many things going up to where I am now. And you have to pass through all those opportunities to really hone your skills to do what's right." So you can't, I really can't say that I knew exactly what I wanted to do, because I never thought I'd be the director of government and industry relations for the second largest ambulance company in the United States now. In 11 years, we were able to achieve that and develop it.
Yeah, so I mean that's quite a journey, and as you and I talked about when I was reading through your bio and everything, having all of those influencers and having the opportunity to sit amongst and learn is something that we can all learn from. I think many times we tend to not want to get out of our comfort zone and take an opportunity to be mentored. We talk about mentoring on this call every single month, and what you're describing here is there were folks who were willing to do that, and you took the opportunity, and again to just say, hey, I was able to teach and be a part of 17 different countries in developing a program that we all know now as PHTLS and other programs such as that. That's absolutely amazing. And of course, as you shared, it started with, very humble beginnings, with your death of your mom at such an early age. But that's just amazing. So Dennis, you currently, as you said, you work for the second largest company in the U.S. and we've all watched the company grow, and it just grows every week. It seems like I'll see some kind of new news article. How do how do we lead and grow in a fast changing healthcare environment while standing our ground in our values? How do we do that? How do we lead and grow in a fast changing healthcare environment while staying grounded in our values? Because sometimes that's hard to do, and you guys are really out there, and in your role, things that you've learned up to this point.
First responders are the backbone of our communities, but often funding restrictions leave stations without essential resources. That's where Serve Strong, Corbin Scott Goad Memorial Foundation steps in. They understand that not every response is a rescue, which is why they focus on ensuring first responders are well rested, physically fit, mentally strong, and equipped with the resources and education they need to save lives. Serve Strong is dedicated to filling in the gaps for first responders, addressing needs that stations might not be able to cover. The foundation exists because of the compassion and professionalism of first responders, witnessed firsthand in the midst of tragic circumstances. If your department needs support, or if you want to support their mission, visit servestrong.us. That's servestrong.us. Serve Strong, Corbin Scott Goad Memorial Foundation. Because when we're strong, our communities are strong too. Don't miss out on the first ever Serve Strong Bash, happening Saturday, October the 4th in Fairfield Glade. Save that date. Serve Strong, Corbin Scott Goad Memorial Foundation, filling in the gaps for first responders.
You have to know yourself. And everybody can talk about all the development and so forth. You have to decide who you are, what you want to do. I've told the story about football. When eighth grade, we lost to the same team twice, got knocked out of the championship, coming back on the bus, we made a decision. We're going to be the undefeated state champions by our senior year. Sure enough, our senior year, we went undefeated and fulfilled that. But that was focus and working together as a team. So you've got to be a team member. You have to appreciate people. Even though you may not like them per se, everybody's right. The old stop clock is right twice a day. So you have to listen, even though you may not like the person. They may be saying things that Howard Baker talks about, they may be right. You have to listen. And I think that's one of the keys is when you're having the opportunity. I've been blessed with that along the way. And I think if people will, it's why they give us 2 ears and 2 eyes, is the old saying, and only 1 mouth, is to listen as much as you can and develop from that. I've been blessed, people like yourself, Dr. McSwain, Blaine Anderson at UT, the chief of trauma, Dr. Mall, who was at one point the head of shock trauma in Baltimore after R. Adams Cowley. All those things require you to be above. I asked Dr. McSwain, why would you spend time with a country boy from Loudoun County, Tennessee? Of course, he was from North Alabama area. And he said, well, first of all, when I heard you in the hallway, you sounded a little like me. And number 2 is, he said, Dennis, and this was years later when we was at the College of Surgeons in Chicago at a meeting. He said, I asked him again, I said, I don't understand. He said, Dennis, it's real simple. You choose to be teachable. And if I could leave you with any one thing out of this, you have to make up your mind that I want to learn. You have to hunger for it because it's not easy. In medicine changing at such a rapid pace. And we are in the house of medicine. We're not nurses. We're not respiratory therapists. We are pre-hospital EMS providers of the finest order. And to do that, we have to continuously learn and become more over time educated than probably we think we have time for. We have to develop that. And Phil, as we've talked about, our young people, and I wanted to get this kicked in before we ran out of time, I firmly believe that this generation is one of the best that we've had. And no, they're not going to work 60 hours a week. No, they're going to be different from us. But as my dad told me when I talked about Steppenwolf, and he said, well, Dad, I'd asked my dad, I said, there was some vulgar language. And he said, well, just don't play those songs. I went, okay. He said, every generation has its music, Dennis. Ours was rockabilly. Yours is the Beatles or Steppenwolf. He said, every generation has that, and you have to appreciate it and understand. He said, so judge not lest ye be judged. And I think often we judge this generation inappropriately because they're still growing and developing. And if we're not contributing to their growth and development, then they don't have the opportunity. And we talk about who's going to replace us, who's going to take care of us. Well, we're deciding that. It's us. Phil and Lee and Jason, we have the responsibility to pass on the knowledge, which is what Dr. McSwain wound up telling me, as well as Dr. Mall and all the people who I've said, listen, you've given me so much. And he said, well, your obligation is to give back. So the people who want to learn, you pass that off to them. Every time you identify them, or even they think like they might be, you want to make sure that you pass that information on, what you've learned and how you've been developed, and the history. You've got to pass on the history because it builds to where you are, good and bad. There's a book written about Elon Musk that if you haven't, you ought to hear it at least. I did it on audio, and it talks about all the stuff that he does. And the guy who wrote that wrote it with the good and the bad in there. So if you want to know the good and the bad of Elon Musk historically, you listen or read the book. Same way with the other biographies that he's done. He will only do them if he can do it straightforward. And all of them agreed that it was important to know what has been done good and what has been done poorly. And that's where we have to come to the inner demons that we have to really develop and be the very best whether it's a paramedic or an educator, you've got to make sure that you're honed to the skills. And it's tough. And it's like the question of education. When we appeared before the governor's advisory board, when there was that in 77, the EOA was only for AEMTs, which was paramedic at the time. And we got it passed by Bill Farnham, who's a respiratory therapist and EMT, to allow EMTs to use the EOA. Well, Dennis Rowe, part of his presentation as part of the Tennessee Emergency Medical Technician Association at the time, was to present having a minimum of a high school diploma or a GED as an educational standard. You would have thought that I had absolutely taken their firstborn. I mean, I got so much criticism for saying that we should have a GED or a high school diploma. So all this argument that goes on now about associate degree, bachelor's degree, master's, whatever the debate is, the old saying is custard wear arrow shirts. So you've got to make sure that you have your ducks in a row and you're solid in your logistics and your strategy. But yes, we've got to develop our educational standards, but know the history, because if you know the history, that part of our development has been a struggle the whole time, and it's going to continue to be because of we lack the numbers that we need. And if you start complicating that, it's going to be the same thing the nurses went through, is a tremendous shortage, and we're already in a shortage. So know the history is my point to where you're going. Anything's achievable if you're willing to make the effort and energy in the correct manner, and going around making people angry is not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. I tell you, sometimes we lose focus on our history, our past, and obviously we know the old saying that that often repeats itself when we do that. The point that you made on being teachable, I think we've all encountered with people who are just not teachable, and if you're not teachable and you know everything, then how far does your path go? At some point in time, you hit a brick wall. And one thing I can say about Dennis is, for the folks on this call, that I was super impressed with, not only just the story that Dennis has to tell and humble beginnings and all the people he's had an opportunity to interact with, is when we were putting this together, as we were talking about teachable, Dennis would say, now critique this and tell me, don't hold back. And I thought that was really commendable, because it's your story. I don't try to take the guests that we have on this call and tell them how to tell their story, but you were very much about being teachable, as we're talking about here, and asking me to give you all feedback as we're preparing for this. So that's something that's so important, is being teachable and being able to be willing to learn. I think that folks who reach a place in their leadership journey that become a mindset of, okay, I've already arrived, I've done all that, there's nothing that you can teach me. I'm going to pause there for a moment, because that's what happens. That individual runs into a place in their life where things pause, because that's as far as they're going to go, because they can't be open to being teachable. And as leaders, we have to every single day open our minds to learn something new. We have to step out of our comfort zone. We have to embrace the fear that we don't know everything, as we've talked about numerous times on this call. Set clear and challenging goals. All the things that got you to your point now. You just didn't arrive there one day. You took the time to be teachable and achieve that. And Dennis, as I told you on this call, this thing goes by fast. So we're getting to the point now where if anybody has any questions, please put those in the chat. We definitely want to give you time to have those answered. While we're doing that, Dennis, you and I talked about, you have a nice little story about a fish. You want to share that while we're gathering some of the questions?
Well, when Dr. Lash asked me about coming to the helicopter program, initially part-time and I was offered one of the first full-time positions. I went to the administrator. We worked for HCA at the time. I was a director with them. And I asked him, I said, Bill, you've been great to me. I mean, great. I've gotten to understand balance sheets and all this financial stuff that I had no clue existed. I said, so I'm mixed on this opportunity. And I told him the opportunity of going to the helicopter program. And he said, Dennis, you can stay right here in Loudoun County for the rest of your time. And you can be a big fish in the little pond, or you can go up to the university and become the little fish in a huge pond of opportunity. And he said, that's where the opportunity to really grow and develop is at a university academic teaching facility, and you'll grow and do well. But we also need you here. We want you here. It's not that we're trying to run you off, but if you're going to grow, you're going to have to get that opening. And he said, I'm not going to tell you what to do because it's not my place, but I would really consider that fish. And it did. I mean, I got to do things. I was involved in things at Lifestar that was the cutting edge of things at the time. We wore Nomex flight suits, helmets, because Dr. Lash's knowledge of aircraft crashes. And from that, I went to the trauma service and had the opportunity to teach in many countries and develop. I got a chance to be in the College of Surgeons meetings in Chicago when they were developing different ATLS components. And then I had the opportunity to do bench research, antibiotic studies, as well as D-dimer, where we were looking at blood clots because we had a 17-year-old die on us that shouldn't have died because of a humerus fracture, and she threw a clot. And it compelled us to figure out what in the world we need to be doing. So those little squeezy things you see on people's legs and the Lominox anticoagulant therapy that's done on people now, that came out of that research along with San Diego, Hanover, Germany, other countries that we partnered with to get enough numbers. And that's where a lot of that developed out of, was that research, because of a 17-year-old and not being willing to accept that death in of itself, which was one death, but it was so impactful that it made us go forth with information that was available. And if you remember the clotting cascade in the high school books, and even college, it's just a 1-page or maybe 2-page fold out. Well, if you really get into the clotting cascade in the pathophysiology books and bio books, it's a phenomenal amount of things to look at. So I learned a phenomenal opportunity to really understand human physiology, and we published the papers and did well with it, and it laid the foundations of what we do now. That's a great feeling. If you really want to feel good about it, do something like that. Number 2, those Christmas cards that come in through the years about thank you for helping me, thank you for saving my life, thank you for taking care of my child. Keep those in a desk somewhere, and when you see things deteriorating in your career, pull them out, because it will rekindle your desire. It's real simple. You have to have that motivation.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that was fantastic, and so much information. And Dennis, we're out of time. We're completely out of time. That's Lee back there in the background playing the music that says we got to wrap it up.
You said it go quick.
Yeah, it goes quick. So thank you for sharing. I just want to leave everybody with one quick thing here. What Dennis said is so important. Don't stay comfortable. Get uncomfortable. Go to the bigger opportunity, because you never know where it may land you. For Dennis, it's landed him at the top of the level at the second largest company in the world, and that's fantastic. Join us next month, June the 6th, Friday, June the 6th. Our guest will be a lady from Stanford University Medical Center. Her name is Sharon Lee Pollard. We look forward to having her. Definitely will learn a lot from her perspective and her career as a leader. And also, Don't forget that our TEMSEA conference is coming up in July the 30th through August the 1st. And the golf outing is on July the 29th. We'd love to have your organization sponsor a team. And we do this call every single first Friday of the month because the most important person you ever lead is yourself. I challenge everybody on this call for the next 30 days until we meet again. Think about how you can get out of your comfort zone, grow yourself into new and bigger opportunities. Don't let those things pass you because I promise you, we only live this life one time. Until then, thank you, Dennis. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and look forward to seeing everybody again on June the 6th. Happy Friday and have a great weekend.